Before there was man, before the earth echoed with footsteps, or the sky witnessed the cries of newborns, the cosmos held secrets known only to its creator. In the shadows of time, long forgotten by human memory, a race walked the earth with intelligence, purpose, and freedom: the Jinn. Fashioned by Allah from smokeless fire, they were not like the angels, who were made of light and knew nothing of sin. These Jinn were free-willed, capable of obedience and defiance, of goodness and corruption. They were a civilization of mystery, roaming the lands, building cities, forming tribes, and mastering the world in ways humans never would. They were powerful, swift, unseen, living in dimensions that overlapped our reality, yet hidden from our senses. For ages unknown, they ruled the earth, long before a single drop of clay had taken form in the shape of Adam. But this freedom, this power, became their test, and soon their downfall. In the beginning, the Jinn were upright and grateful, and among them were worshippers who praised their creator, just as the righteous among humans would later do. But as generations passed, their hearts began to turn. Pride crept in, ambition festered, and their societies became entangled in arrogance and rivalry. They started warring with one another, their thirst for control overtaking their remembrance of Allah. Blood was spilled, though it was not the red blood of men. It was the breakdown of peace, the decay of their noble beginnings. Tyrants among them rose and declared dominion over the earth, and their whispers of rebellion reached the heavens. The earth began to echo with their sins, and its soil bore witness to their corruption. Their fire, once a symbol of their energetic essence, now became a tool of destruction. They scorched the lands, defiled the oceans, and silenced the righteous among them. The balance was shattered. As their wickedness grew, the earth itself cried out to its creator. The angels, ever obedient, looked down and saw the chaos unfold. Though they were not created with the power of choice, they felt sorrow for the state of the world. Then, by the command of Allah, the heavens stirred. An army of angels, warriors of light, descended upon the earth. This was not an act of vengeance, but a divine act of justice. These angels, pure and fearless, came not just to punish, but to restore balance. Leading this celestial force was Azazil, a Jinn who had not succumbed to corruption. He had lived a life of immense worship and was granted a status among the angels due to his unwavering devotion. At that time, he was admired in the heavens. Unlike his kin who had fallen into disobedience, Azazil stood tall, disciplined, and pious. With divine permission, the angelic host swept across the earth. The wicked Jinn tribes were overwhelmed by a force they could neither see clearly nor withstand. Their fortresses were crushed, their empires dissolved, and the rebellious were scattered. Some fled to the remote corners of the earth, into the deep forests and forgotten caves. Others took refuge in the oceans and darkened valleys, hiding away from the light that had banished them. The earth, once heavy with their transgressions, began to breathe again. But all was not healed. Though the war was won and the angels returned to the heavens, the scars remained, and so did the survivors. The Jinn who escaped vowed never to forget. Among the scattered remnants were those who reflected and repented, but others carried the fire of vengeance in their hearts. And among them all, Azazil stood differently. Once the celebrated among the ranks of angels, he began to believe that he was not just pious, but superior. Watching his fallen brethren, he did not feel compassion or fear, but a growing belief that he alone was worthy of greatness. Unseen by the angels around him, this seed of pride began to sprout. At that time, the earth was quiet, purified by divine justice, but it would not remain that way for long. For something new was coming. a creation unlike any before it, one that would carry the legacy of the earth and face the same test of free will. And this new arrival would stir a fire in Azazil that would shake the heavens once more. From the ashes of the great corruption, after the angels had swept the earth clean of the chaos wrought by the Jinn, peace briefly returned. The remnants of the Jinn who had survived the divine purge retreated into the shadows, some into caves beneath mountains, others into the dark depths of the seas, while many scattered into desolate and forgotten lands, clinging to survival. But from the ruins of this shattered world, one figure rose above them all, not in rebellion but in piety, Azazil. Though born of Jinn, Azazil was unlike the others. He had not only remained obedient during the uprising, but had excelled in worship to a degree that astonished even the angels. While his own kind had fallen to their desires and ego, Azazil had bowed, fasted, praised, and submitted until he was elevated by Allah to the ranks of the angels themselves. Though not of their essence, he was allowed to dwell among them, to ascend through the heavens and witness what no Jinn before him ever had. He worshipped Allah in every layer of the skies, in every celestial court, and in every sacred space. For thousands of years, he moved among the angels like one of them, admired and respected, his devotion becoming his crown. The angels marveled at his sincerity, and many believed him to be the most righteous among the creation of free will. Yet deep within him, hidden even from himself, a dangerous feeling began to fester, a sense of superiority. Azazil looked upon the fate of the rebellious Jinn with contempt. He saw their destruction not with sorrow, but with pride in his own restraint. He viewed himself not just as a servant of Allah, but as a beacon of excellence among the flawed. He began to compare himself not only to his fallen kin, but even to the angels he walked among. What began as gratitude subtly turned into self-admiration. Pride, the very disease that had destroyed the Jinn kingdoms, now began to whisper into his own heart. But it was quiet, it was hidden, and it would not surface until the moment of his greatest test. Then came the divine decree that would change the destiny of creation. Allah, the all-knowing, the most wise, announced to the angels, "Indeed, I am going to place a vicegerent on earth." The words echoed through the heavens, stirring questions in the hearts of the angels who had seen the destruction left behind by the Jinn. They asked with humility and reverence, "Will you place upon it one who will cause corruption and shed blood while we glorify and praise you?" It was not defiance in their question, but genuine concern born from the memory of the chaos they had witnessed. They could not understand the purpose of another creature with free will walking the earth, a place that had only just been cleansed from the ruin of the last. But Allah, in his perfect wisdom, replied simply, "I know what you do not know." While the angel submitted to this divine command, Azazil listened with curiosity, and something within him stirred. The news of a new creation, made not of light nor of fire, but of something lowly and dense, clay, was to him an insult to the divine order he had grown accustomed to. Clay? Mud? A substance walked on, molded, dried, and cracked under the sun? How could such a creature, formed from the dust of the earth, be worthy of the honor once given to him? He who was created from smokeless fire, pure, powerful, and swift, began to feel that his essence was nobler. But he said nothing. He watched. He waited. As the angels gathered in awe, Adam began to take form. His body was shaped by the hands of Allah, his features molded with precision, and his form left hollow for a time. Azazil circled him, examining this new creation with growing doubt. The Jinn within him, the fire, began to boil. While the angels looked on with wonder and submission, Azazil grew suspicious. Day by day, his internal struggle grew. He knew Allah was perfect in wisdom, yet his pride wrestled with his faith. He did not yet rebel, but his heart was no longer at peace. Then came the divine breath. When Allah breathed into Adam of his spirit, the clay became life. The first man, the chosen vicegerent of earth, opened his eyes. The angels were commanded to prostrate, not in worship, but in honor. All at once, the angels fell in submission. Every single one of them bowed before the new creation, fulfilling the divine command without hesitation, all except one. Azazil stood still. He refused. In that moment, what had festered in silence erupted into defiance. He declared, "I am better than him. You created me from fire and you created him from clay." With those words, Azazil revealed what had been hidden all along. His pride, his arrogance, his belief that his devotion and origin made him superior. He had forgotten that true honor is granted by Allah, not earned by essence or ego. Thus began his fall. The most devout among the Jinn, the one who prayed in the heights of the heavens, became the first to rebel among the new creation. Allah, in his justice, cast him out. And with that expulsion, the first enemy of mankind was born, not a monster of horns or flames, but a worshipper consumed by pride. His name would now be Iblis, the one in despair, and despair not just of mercy, but of his own place in the divine order would drive him to vengeance that would last until the end of time. The command had been given, and the fate of creation was sealed. Allah had willed it. A new being, fashioned from clay, was to inherit the earth. A vicegerent, a representative, not of divine perfection like the angels, nor of raw fire like the Jinn, but a blend of earthly weakness and heavenly purpose. His name was Adam, and through him a new chapter of existence would begin. The angels had questioned, not out of defiance but concern, for they remembered well the chaos of the Jinn and the stench of rebellion that once rose from earth like smoke. Yet Allah's response silenced all doubts. "I know what you do not know." And so they waited, obedient as always, trusting the wisdom of their Lord. Meanwhile, Adam's creation was taking place in phases. From clay drawn from every color and soil of the earth, his body was shaped, tall, noble, silent. For a time, he remained a lifeless form, a hollow shell. The angels passed by him in awe, marveling at what he would become. Azazil, now quietly burning with unease, circled him with a different gaze. He tapped upon Adam's shell, hearing the echo within. He scoffed at its emptiness and whispered to himself, "What worth lies in this hollow thing?" But Adam was not finished. When Allah breathed into Adam his spirit, the miracle unfolded. The clay came to life. His eyes opened, his limbs moved. He stood upright, the only creature formed by Allah's own hands and honored with his spirit. The angels recognized the majesty of this moment and bowed in full obedience as commanded. All without hesitation lowered themselves in humility, all but Azazil. That single refusal, rooted in pride, would fracture the unseen world. Allah questioned him directly, exposing the arrogance hidden behind years of piety. "What prevented you from prostrating when I commanded you?" Azazil's answer was a declaration of rebellion. "I am better than him. You created me from fire, and you created him from clay." In that moment, he denied not only the order, but the wisdom of the one who created him. His worship, his years of devotion, all were nullified by the venom of his pride. Allah, in his justice, expelled him. "Then get down from here. It is not for you to be arrogant here. Get out. Indeed, you are of the debased." And yet, even in his disgrace, Azazil made a chilling request. He asked for respite, not forgiveness, not a return, but time. Time until the day of judgment. Allah granted it. Indeed, you are of those reprieved." And then came the vow that would ignite the battle between truth and falsehood until the end of time. Azazil, now known as Iblis, said, "Because you have put me in error, I will surely sit in wait for them on your straight path. Then I will come to them from before them and from behind them, from their right and from their left, and you will not find most of them grateful." This was no ordinary rebellion. It was a war declared against all of Adam's children, not through weapons, not through armies, but through whispers, through deception, through the corrosion of faith and the manipulation of desire. Iblis was not content with his own fall. He swore to drag as many of mankind down with him as he could. It was not just about revenge. It was about pride, about proving to Allah that this creature of clay was unworthy, that he, the fireborn, was right all along. And so began the era of temptation. Iblis would no longer seek Allah's pleasure. He would now spend his existence in defiance. He would become the first Shaytan, and he would rally his own kind, the Jinn, those who still harbored resentment and rebellion, into an army of misguidance. But Allah is never unjust. Though he allowed Iblis his time, he also gave humanity guidance. Adam was not left alone. Allah taught him the names of all things, granted him knowledge that even the angels marveled at. He was honored not just in form, but in mind and spirit. And through Adam, his descendants would inherit the earth, not as reckless beings of chaos, but as stewards entrusted with truth, morality, and the ability to choose between obedience and rebellion. Still, Iblis watched. He planned. He whispered. And when Adam and Hawa were placed in the Garden of Paradise, when they lived in peace under Allah's command, Iblis made his move. Not with a sword, not with an army, but with a lie. He whispered deceit into their hearts, manipulating their innocence, questioning the command of their Lord. He promised them eternity, divinity, a kingdom that would never end. And with one bite, the test began. The fall of man was not just a descent from paradise, it was the awakening of a great battle. Not one of flesh and blood, but of belief and deception, obedience and pride, remembrance and forgetfulness. Iblis had succeeded in his first act of misguidance, but he had failed in his ultimate goal. For Adam, unlike Iblis, turned back to his Lord in repentance. He wept, he humbled himself, and Allah forgave him. That was the difference between the two. Where Iblis clung to arrogance, Adam submitted in sorrow. From that moment on, the battlefield expanded. Mankind would now walk the earth, carrying the light of divine guidance, while Shayatin, led by Iblis, would shadow them in every step. The war was no longer just between Jinn and angels. It had entered the hearts of men. What unfolded next would not be chronicled in the heavens with the clash of wings or fire, but in the unseen battlefields of the soul. The physical war between angels and Jinn had ended, but a deeper, more insidious war had only just begun. One waged in silence, in shadows, in whispers. After being cast down, Iblis did not rest. He began building an empire of darkness, a kingdom without borders that stretched across dimensions and generations. From the shattered remnants of the Jinn, who had once ruled the earth, he gathered allies. Some came to him willingly, still angry at their banishment and bitter toward the rise of mankind. Others were seduced by his promises of power, by the allure of revenge and chaos. Together they became the Shayatin, the devils, loyal not to truth or justice, but to the hatred that burned in Iblis's chest. They roamed the earth, unseen yet ever present, whispering temptations into the hearts of men and women, planting seeds of doubt, envy, arrogance, lust, despair, and rebellion. They took root in every society, every culture, adapting to each age with new disguises, new voices, new tools, but always the same goal: to divert humanity from the path that leads to Allah. The angels, on the other hand, never ceased their divine duties. Though they did not fight with swords in this new war, they stood as guardians, protectors, and messengers. They recorded every deed, guided those who sought the light, and descended with tranquility upon the righteous in their times of need. Every night and day, every soul was flanked by two scribes, Kiram and Katibin, writing down every word, every action. Others, like Jibril, continued to descend with revelation, delivering the word of Allah to his chosen prophets. Some angels were tasked to protect believers, to strengthen them in prayer, to bring peace to the hearts of those who remembered their Lord. These silent warriors, bound by absolute obedience, stood firm in their stations while the Shaytan prowled the spaces in between. But this was not a war the human eye could witness. The battle raged in the unseen, the Ghaib. To most, it passed unnoticed, yet its effects shaped the very course of human history. Every tyrant that rose, every temptation that led people astray, every flicker of envy that destroyed families, every whisper that caused a heart to harden, these were not accidents. These were victories for Iblis's army. And yet, they were never absolute. For Allah had not left mankind defenseless. From the moment of Adam's descent to earth, divine guidance accompanied humanity like a lantern in the night. Prophets were sent in succession, each one a beacon of truth, armed not with armies, but with the light of revelation. With every temptation came a reminder, with every whisper, a verse, with every fall, the chance to rise again. This was the mercy of Allah, that no soul would be left unarmed in the face of evil. The Prophet Muhammad, the seal of the messengers, came as the final light in this war. Through him, Allah revealed not only the path to salvation, but also the strategies of the enemy. He taught mankind the tools of defense, the Quran, the remembrance of Allah, the protective verses that drive away the devils. He taught us that Shayatin flee from the sound of sincere dhikr, that they cannot enter homes where Surah Al-Baqarah is recited, that Ayat al-Kursi is a fortress, and that wudu purifies not just the body, but the space around us. He told us how to seek refuge in Allah from the evil whispers, how to guard our homes, our prayers, our thoughts. He showed us that every step toward Allah is a step away from Shaytan's grasp. Even the simplest acts, eating with the right hand, beginning with Bismillah, entering the bathroom with the left foot, became shields in this invisible war. Islam became not just a religion, but a defense system for the soul. Through it, the believer was equipped with spiritual armor, even when he could not see the battle unfolding around him. And yet, despite all these tools, the war never paused. It was patient. It passed from parent to child, from one generation to the next. Shaytan does not need to rush. He waits at every crossroad, when faith weakens, when desires grow, when hearts become heedless. He studies every individual, knowing their weakness, exploiting their doubts. He doesn't need to conquer all, only to mislead just enough to make one turn away from Allah. But every time someone wakes in the last third of the night to pray, Shaytan suffers. Every time a tear is shed in sincere repentance, his plot fails. Every time the Quran is recited with reflection, a wound is struck against his army. And every time someone chooses patience over anger, honesty over deception, trust in Allah over despair, it is a victory not just for the individual, but for all of humanity in the face of ancient evil. But this battle is not endless. There is an appointed time for all things, a day when the veils will be lifted, when the unseen will become seen, and every soul will witness the truth with their own eyes. On that day, the day of judgment, humanity and Jinn alike will be gathered. Iblis and his followers will be dragged forward, exposed for what they truly were. The tricks, the lies, the whispers, all laid bare. Those who followed him will try to blame him, but he will disown them. I only called you, and you responded to me, he will say. Do not blame me, but blame yourselves. The Jinn who lived righteously, who obeyed Allah and believed in his messengers, will be rewarded alongside righteous humans. But the arrogant, the rebellious, the deceivers among both races will face the consequence of their choices. Then the angels will descend once more, not in war, but in ranks of light. They will welcome the believers, guide them to their final abode, and celebrate the triumph of truth. For in the end, the fire of pride will be extinguished by the light of humility. The whispers of Shaytan will be silenced by the eternal word of Allah. And those who stood firm, even in the face of unseen enemies, will be honored beyond imagination. The war will end, justice will reign, and the kingdom will belong to the most merciful alone.